I scrambled from the brig and very quickly told Zachariah what had happened when I brought the information about the round robin to Captain Jaggery. How he removed a key from behind the portrait of his daughter, and with it opened the gun safe. Zachariah grunted. I never thought to look there. Did you look? To be sure, if we could secure that key and the guns, we would have taken them before, and I can promise you, it's still there. It's still true. I felt a surge of excitement. Is there anyone who goes into this cabin now? I asked. I don't know, Zachariah said. But you could go. Me? You know exactly where it is, don't you? But I'm supposed to be here. Exactly, Zachariah, I cried. That would be insane. What if he caught me? He could do no worse than he intends to do. I saw the gruesome logic in that. But even if I did get the key, then what? If Jaggery has no muskets, the men could rallied again. What if the crew gets their hands on the guns? What will they do? I couldn't answer to that, he admitted. I don't want any more death, I said. Get the key to me, Charlotte. The rest will follow. The enormity of the idea frightened me. Why shouldn't you go get it to begin with? I wanted to know. If it's me he catches Charlotte, he'll be free to get rid of both of us. If it should happen that you fail, it would still leave me a chance to try and act. Try? Charlotte, it's all I can promise. I considered his reasons. Then I said, Zachariah, you told me that the crew has been coming down to bring you food. Yes? I won't do anything until you tell them that it wasn't you who killed Hollybrass, nor me, and that we are certain it was Captain Jaggery himself. It'll make it much safer for me to make the attempt. I see your point. When do they come? When they can. Zachariah, I reminded. He's only given me 24 hours. Get back there, then, he said, motioning to the brig and pulling himself up. I'll try to find someone. I retreated to the cage. He adjusted the bars and left a box candle within easy reach, as well as a tinder box. I heard him move away through the darkness until I lost sense of where he was. There was this about the dark. It freed me from time and space. Cut off as I was, I could retreat into thoughts about all that has happened since my arrival at Liverpool with that odd Mr. Grummage. It seemed a million years ago, yet no time at all. I couldn't help but feel some pride in what I had accomplished. Perhaps it was Zachariah's reference to my father, but for the first time in a long while, I began to think of my true home in Providence, Rhode Island. Though I'd only the vaguest memories of the house itself, I'd left it when I was 6. Thoughts of my mother, my father, my brother and sister were all very strong and clear. With a start for it to be a curious fact that I had not truly considered my family for a time, I began to contemplate and accounting to them of all that happened, if I had lived. With great vividness, I pictured myself relating my adventure, while they grouped about, listened and rapt, adoring attention, astonished yet proud of me. At the mere anticipation, my heart swelled with pride. I was still basking in the dreams when I heard the sounds of someone approaching. Not knowing who it might be, I pushed myself to the back of the brig and waited. Then I heard Charlotte. It was Zachariah's voice. Give us light, he called in a whisper. I scrambled forward, found the tinder box, and in moments had the candle lit. There was Zachariah, and with him Keach. From the first moment I had seen Keach, as I came aboard the Seahawk, I have never cared for him. He was too nervous, uncertain. To see that he was the one Zachariah had brought was not the greatest comfort. Miss Doyle, Keach said. When he drew close, peering about in his agitated way, I'm pleased to see you. And I made myself reply. What followed then was a strange council of war. Zachariah made it clear at the start that neither he nor I murdered Mr. Hollybrass. Then who did then? Keach asked, truly alarmed. Captain Jaggery, I said quickly. Why? What do you mean? He demanded. We offered our reasons. Keach listened intently, only occasionally looking up with startled eyes at me or Zachariah, yet nodding to it all. Murder his own mate, he murmured at the end with a shake of his head. Do you have any doubts? Zachariah asked. None about you, Keach told him. And me? I asked. He seemed hesitant to speak. As I see it, I said, the men didn't want to help me during the trial because you thought it was Zachariah who killed Mr. Hollybrass. True enough, Keach said. We talked about just that, I'll admit it. I was the one who said we owed more to Zachariah here than to you. Understand, he said, where our loyalties lie. I assured him that I did and insisted I laid no blame. As you know, Keach continued, I wasn't one of those who took to you in partial way, not like Zachariah here. I'll confess too. I never wanted you aboard. You remember. I told you when you first came. I nodded. But you've proven me wrong more than once, he concluded. So if my word means anything, you can now be sure no man will support your honor more than I. That said, he held out his hand to me. I was relieved at Keach's acceptance. Perhaps I thought I'd wronged him. So then and there, he and I shook hands like old sailors. I felt a great weight drop from my soul. The news Keach brought was crucial, that we were by the captain's reckoning. A few days' sails from Providence. Hating me was therefore of the utmost urgency, which explained the captain's 24 hours. Keach readily agreed with Zachariah that if we could manage to keep the captain from his guns, never mind securing them for ourselves, another rising could be staged. He would vouch for that, but, he warned, he keeps those guns locked up and the key to himself. I know where he hides it, I said. He looked around in surprise. Where? I told him. And would you try to get them? Yes. Keach whistled softly. Most times he keeps to his cabin, he said. All you need to do is find some way to get him onto the deck, Zachariah said. I'll be here and ready when you have, I put in. Once you've detained him, I can secure the key to the gun cabinet. It shouldn't take her but a moment, Keach, Zachariah pressed. Keach studied his hands for a long while. It might be possible. He glanced upward. What about the others? You're gonna have to spread the word that it was the captain who murdered Mr. Holybrass, not me. Zachariah told him. Not her either. Keach nodded. They're not gonna want to know what happens to that key once she's got it, he said. I looked to Zachariah. She'll give it to me, he said. I'll be in top cargo waiting for it. And when I've got it, that will be the time for you and me, he nudged Keach with an elbow, to lead another rising. Once again we waited on Keach. The way he fidgeted, it was easy to see that he was nervous about the plan. But that was natural. I was nervous too. Finally he said, It would be the only way, except it better not fail. Zachariah turned to me. There you are, he said. We'll do it. On all this we shook hands, and I was soon, once again, alone in darkness. It's odd, perhaps, but I was not frightened. I assumed we could succeed with our plan. Oh, what a power of faith and justice had I then. A few days from Providence, I smiled. I would return to the life I'd led with my family, but now in America, where, so I had been long taught to believe, greater freedom held sway. I sat for the better part of an hour thinking, not of what was about to happen, but of the happy days ahead. I heard a sound. I started up, peering into the darkness. Zachariah, quiet, breathless, appeared before me. Charlotte, he called. It's time. I crawled out from the brig. Zachariah had found a small lamp, one well hooded. This way, he whispered, before I could ask him anything. We moved toward the central cargo bay and its ladder. I looked up. It was quite dark above. What time is it? I suddenly asked. 2 bells in the mid-watch. By shore reckoning, that meant it would be 1 o'clock at night. Couldn't we do it by daylight? Charlotte, you scheduled to be hanged at dawn. My stomach rolled. My legs grew shaky. Zachariah put his hands on my arms as if he himself had caught my fear. You'll do well, he said. He closed down the lantern's hood to a mere slit and led the way up the ladder. I followed until we reached the top cargo. Once there, Zachariah signaled me toward the rear ladder. It would put me directly in the steerage before the captain's cabin. Where will the captain be? I whispered. Keach set out word that he's got him at the helm. Zachariah explained with a low voice. He's managed to jam the wheel somehow, and called the captain for instruction. Roused him for his bed. How long will I have? Take no more time than you need, was his reply. And the rest of the crew? Word on that too. They all know and are waiting. Go on now. I'll watch for you here. I looked at him. Charlotte, is this or the royal yard? I crept aloft and soon was standing alone in the empty steerage, listening. The steady wash of waves, the bobbing and swaying of the ship, the creak and groan of the timbers, all told me the Seahawk was plowing toward home in a brisk wind. By chance the door to my old cabin was open. As it swung to and fro, it banged irregularly. Rusty hinges get rasping. When I had heard that sound before, what came to my mind was that first night aboard the ship, when I lay upon my bed feeling so abandoned, how frightened I'd been then, how little How little was there then to fear. I remembered the voices I'd heard outside my door at that time. Who had spoken, I wondered, as though to keep myself from moving forward. What was said? Nervously, I glanced back over the shoulder through the steerage portal. When I could not see much, the soft glow that lay upon the deck told me that it must be a full or nearly full moon. I was glad of that. It meant there would be some light to see inside Captain's cabin. Yet, inexplicably, I remained standing there, wasting precious time listening to my old door bang and creak, trying to rid myself of fear that lay like heavy ballast in the pit of my stomach, a notion that I had neglected to consider something about the voices I had heard that first night. The suspicion became rather like an invisible rope that had restrained me, try though I might, I could not find how to unbind it. A random plunge of the ship roused me to my business. Making sure the little lantern was well shielded, I moved to the door, put my hand to the handle, and pushed. It gave with ease. The room lay open before me. Dimly, I could make out its fine furnishings, even the chessboard with its pieces, exactly as I recollected from them my first visit. I lifted the lantern. There, seated at the table, was Captain Jackery. His eyes were upon me. "Miss Doyle," he said, "how kind of you to visit. Do please step in."